dead and buried.
Live in the funhouse.
They can sense the rhythm of your blood.
What's that supposed to mean?
Nothing, except I suddenly find myself up to my neck in heads. Heads in duck ponds, in fish tanks, in buckets. And then I come here and I find more heads.
Are you suggesting there's some connection between Professor Millett's research and these awful murders? What's the boogeyman?
Hey, you're not walking home alone tonight, are you? After what happened?
We'll be all right. Isn't breaking and entering a crime even for a policeman?
Isn't headhunting a crime even for an anthropologist?
Hi, it's Kimberly Beck from Friday the 13th, Part 4, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
Yeah, indeed you are. Welcome back to The Hysteria Continues, episode number 24. We're almost at a quarter of century. So we're getting there. And yeah, thanks for joining us again. This episode, we're going to be talking about Night School, aka Terrorize, the 1981 slasher police drama / kind of comedy, kind of whatever mashup. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later. But before we do, introduce you to our celebrators of Gru. So from across the pond, we've got Erik. How are you doing, Erik?
I'm doing good, yes. I'm not drunk yet.
You're not drunk yet? Are you working on that?
For once. Yes, with green apple vodka.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Very nice. Very nice. And how about, we've got over in Tennessee, how are you doing, Nathan?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm okay. A little bit hungover.
Oh, there's a surprise.
Yes, as is the norm.
No, as well. I won't talk about that before we say hello to Joseph. How are you doing?
I'm good, and A is for apple, B is for bed, C is for co-ed, D is for dead, F is for failing to keep your head.
Indeed. I was just looking at the DVD cover and the poster for Night School, and isn't co-ed, does that, because we don't really have co-eds in the UK, is a co-ed like co-educational? Is that like men and women going to college together?
That is correct, Justin.
But in Night School, they don't go to college together, do they? Because it's a women's only college.
Yes, so that tagline is a little misleading.
It is, yes. Okay, so trying to throw...
Is it specified in the plot as a women's only school? Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, I must have missed that bit. I was too busy laughing. I mean, screaming.
Screaming, yes, yeah. Indeed. But yes, well, hopefully, I think you're a bit under the weather, Joseph, aren't you? Or you kept awake last night?
Yeah, it's a little cold here, and there's like a crack in the window or something, and it's got a little chilly in here. But so I am a little like sleep deprived, but I'm not hungover like you are.
Okay, so you were kept awake by a crack.
Matron.
Matron, no, please, oh, your hand.
Anyway, so enough of that. But yes, slightly hungover because I went to a Mexican evening last night, and there was lots of tequila and various stuff. I didn't drink too much actually, so I'm not too hungover. I knew sorry.
I was just doing the tequila. Da, 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 da.
Well, as the consummate professional that I am, I decided I wouldn't drink too much last night, so I said no, I will not have another tequila because I knew I had to do this today. So
you're always going to some interesting party for some reason. It's always like a theme party.
That's my life, you see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy, yeah.
Crazy times. And hopefully we'll have some crazy times today with Night School.
Did I hear a horn beeping? No, you needn't play.
I think it was Williams. Outside of my window.
All right.
Does it? Oh, no. Okay. Well, we'll keep off the matrons for a little while. But what we are going to be doing is another top three. And last time we did top three 80s non-slasher horror movies. And this time we're going back a decade to the 1970s, which I'm sure, well, for me, is the 70s and 80s are my favourite decades for horror. So, because we always talk about slasher movies, and obviously this podcast is dedicated to slasher movies, so that's not a problem, obviously. But I think I'll probably speak for all of us that we also enjoy other genre pictures that aren't just slasher movies. So the feedback we had from people listening is they enjoyed the top 3, so we thought we'd do the 70s, and I think we got some quite interesting picks, so hope you're going to agree with that. We're going to skip the recently seen this week, just because we're actually recording this a little bit ahead of time, because we've got Christmas coming up, so we are trying to make sure that we've got content for the next fortnights into new year. So we'll do recently seen next time, but what we'll probably do is probably head straight into our top 3s. How's that sound, guys?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. You all right to go first, Nathan?
What?
Are you all right to go first?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So you make it sound like I'm trying to trick you into something.
Well, I couldn't hear you at first.
Yeah, you're just like Tommy Ross.
I'm just so used to Erik going first, so this is a change-up.
Erik.
Yeah.
As in Marsha. Okay. Okay, Nathan, take it away.
Oh, my number 3 obviously is Carrie. I've always been a huge fan of this movie. I think, Sissy Spacek as Carrie is, phenomenal in the role. And I kind of like the fact that most of the movie plays out more like a drama. I mean, you really feel bad for her because she's got a horrible home life, and all the kids at school are mean to her as well. So, I felt, you feel really a lot of sympathy for her. And it's especially bad at the prom, like when she's tricked, they change the ballots up, so she'll win prom queen, and, she's on stage and she's so happy, and, the blood's about to come down. So, everything's going to be really bad then. But, and of course, the whole movie to me is like a big build up to what's going to happen at the prom. And it wasn't a letdown. I mean, I loved, Carrie getting her revenge, not only on the people that were mean to her, but even on people that were nice to her. Like once the blood, hits her, she just snaps and imagines that everybody's laughing at her. Anyway, yeah, it's a really good movie, and I'm sure that everybody who is listening to this podcast has seen it, so that's my number 3.
Great. Okay. How about you guys? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. Every time I watch Carrie, I always want it to end differently because I feel so sorry for her. Yeah, I'd love an alternate cut of the film where there's a happy ending. Maybe that's just me. That's me being soppy. Yeah.
I'm not a very big fan of Carrie, if I can be honest.
You're not?
Okay. No? No, I find it too depressing. I mean, it's a really well-made movie and well-acted, but it's just so downbeat and just kind of kick you in the throat while you're already on the ground with your, bleeding out. I don't know. I can't watch it over and over.
Okay. I don't see it like that, but I haven't watched it for quite a long time, actually, but... I really love the film, and I love Nancy Allen in it. I think she's, a brilliant bitch, and also I love that whole kind of split screen thing going on, which I think would have worked so well at the cinema, wouldn't it? It doesn't work so well probably on small screen, but if you saw it on a really big screen, I think that would have been amazing. I can't remember if I've read the Stephen King book or not. I don't know if it states...
No, he does say that of all the films that were made off of his works, that Carrie is his favorite. He says that's the best one that they've done.
Right.
Well, that's one instance where I liked the movie better than I did the book.
Okay.
I wasn't a huge fan of the Carrie book. I don't know. Just I didn't like it a whole lot. I actually much prefer the movie.
Did anyone see the miniseries that was out about 10 years ago? Apparently, it was closer to the book. Was it awful?
I didn't really care for it at all. I mean,
there was a miniseries?
Yeah.
I know they did like a sequel or something called The Rage, Carrie 2. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, I liked the big finale in it at the party when she goes crazy and starts killing them all at the party. That was a good scene. But the miniseries, Angela Bettis from May plays Carrie, and she's really good. I mean, I think she's a really good actress. But just the movie together, I mean, it just, I don't know. It wasn't the same. It was not very good to me.
Didn't they do a musical as well?
Yeah,
and I've got
the people behind Fame produced a ill-fated musical that lasted maybe a week, was it? Before it was, dragged off the stage.
Did you get that at Monster Mania, Nathan?
Yeah, I did.
The musical, yeah, I thought so.
Oh, you got it.
Can you imagine, like, Carrie's mom? You're going to burn in hell, so let's dance.
Sounds good. So you've actually watched the musical, have you, Nathan?
I watched part of it, but the quality on it is pretty bad, so I need to have the patience to sit down and...
It's one static camera photographing a dress rehearsal, isn't it? Is what the performance is. So it's pretty tough to watch, especially when it's a bit blurry and the sound isn't great. But I think Leroy from The Kids from Fame is in there somewhere as a character.
Okay. Oh, it's interesting. Well, no, it'd be nice to see a proper version of that. It probably closed for a good reason, but yeah. No, thank you, Nathan, for your number 3. Joseph, I've got you down to go next, if that's all right.
Obviously, my number 3 is the Amicus anthology Asylum, which is basically a 4-pronged tale of terror bookended by that hoary old cliche of telling a crook by his cover. It concerns a doctor whose new job interview might just be his last. He's given the task of identifying a mental patient who used to be a renowned doctor, and his 4 choices set off each story within the frame of the film. The stories themselves are all quite good, particularly the last one, but it's the last second twist in the end that really seals the deal as my number 3. It's a really shocking conclusion, and let's see. I know Nathan has seen it. Have you seen it, Justin or Eric?
Yes, and I saw it on television where they showed it open mat, I think is the correct phrase. So isn't one of the stories about severed limbs coming to life from a freezer and attacking somebody? Is that one of the stories in it? Because I remember watching it on the television and you could see somebody's hand operating the severed limbs. And I was thinking, that's a bit stupid.
I'm not sure if it's that one, is it? Is it that one?
Is that Asylum?
Is that one.
Yeah.
Is that
it
one?
is.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I like those Amicus ones. I mean, I liked Vault of Horror and Tales from the Crypt is their one as well, isn't it?
Yes, the one with Joey Collins and the Psycho Santa.
Yes. Yeah, I think they're very clever, really good sort of Twilight Zone-y type films.
Well, I would have chosen one, probably almost definitely, but I knew you'd chosen one, Joseph. I might have gone for Tales from the Crypt. But Amicus are great. I actually watched Amicus's last anthology film, which is called Monster Club, which has got Christopher Lee, I think, in it. Was it Christopher Lee? I think it's Christopher Lee. And it's kind of basically an early 80s Amicus thing, and it's really shockingly bad. And it's got lots of new wave. It's a club where monsters go to listen to new wave music.
Oh, I'm sold.
I thought you probably would be, but it sounds better than it is. It's kind of like a kid's version almost of the Amicus horror films. But the Amicus, those portmanteau kind of things, I love them. I've actually got most of them, on DVD, and they're great to watch, time and time again. They're very entertaining. They didn't really do, apart from they did a few of them in the 70s, didn't they? American ones like what's the one with Karen Black?
Trilogy of Terror.
Yeah, and so things like that. And it's a shame they don't really do those kind of films anymore, do they?
No, I always thought they should bring the anthology back. I really miss the anthology. I love it.
Trick or Treat was kind of an anthology.
Yeah, it
was sort of. It is kind of more of a dovetailing into each story, but it's not like separate stories. They all kind of connect. But I really like anthologies. Not as much as slasher films, but it's a kind of an underappreciated subgenre, I think.
Cool. Yeah,
I love the wraparound story in Asylum, but
that twist at the end.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, I loved it because I didn't see it coming. But the stories like in the movie, I always thought that they were like really underwhelming as opposed to that wraparound story, which to me like makes the movie.
And especially the last one with the mannequins. The ones with the mannequins, the very last one, that's probably my favorite of the 4. But you are right. The wraparound story is just absolutely out of this world.
Yes.
Cool. Well, great choice, number 3. Eric, you've got to go in a slightly different direction, don't you?
I do, yes. I mean, I do love the original Jaws, as practically everyone does. I do feel it, it has all its money shots in the first half of the film and then kind of slows down, whereas Jaws 2 reverses that. It builds up nicely and then it's a fantastic second half. And because they're aiming it at a teen market, it's all that much more sort of trashier and, more they're playing more into the horror crowd's hand, really, with Jaws 2, I find. The bulk of the film is teenagers on these upturned catamarans and that being menaced by a giant shark. You've got the fantastic screaming of Donna Wilkes, who, once the shark appears on the screen, doesn't stop screaming, and indeed somebody has to slap her across the face as if she's in an airport film. You've got a kid who looks like... he is in the exact image of Napoleon Dynamite. He's got the curly hair and the big glasses. He's called Timmy, but I'm convinced that that's his nickname and Napoleon is his real name. It's quite... I keep saying Halloween 2 was the first film I saw, but watching this, I watched Jaws 2 during the week, and I just remember, actually, this was the first horror film I ever saw. I saw the first half of it, and it was too intense for me. This would have been about 1981 or 82. It was on the television, and I had to leave it to my brother to tell me what happened in the end, because I just couldn't take any more. It was too terrifying. Yes, I was a complete wuss. I went upstairs and listened to Bucks Fizz tapes or something instead. Bucks Fizz being a band, in case you don't know, Nathan and Joseph.
I know who you're talking about.
Yes. Apparently, it was quite a difficult production. They had an original director, John Hancock, who was going for a more darker tone to the film, but they wanted something light and fluffy to sell to multiplexes, so they got Janos Schwark in, who had done Bug, which was another film I quite like, one of those sort of killer insect movies that were sort of prominent in the 70s.
Is that the one with the bug sets on fire?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sort of prehistoric bugs or something. I think Jaws and Jaws 2 are brilliant, and I just find it sort of strange how they couldn't recapture the intensity of those two films in subsequent sequels. I mean, Jaws 3 was trashy and it had really bad special effects, and I do love it. Jaws the Revenge, though... Dear, oh dear, oh dear. It's pretty awful. I mean, I like my bad movies, but that's just too bad, even from my standards. I know Jaws 2 is slated by a lot of people, but I like its... it does, get kind of campy and silly at times, particularly when Jaws starts eating a helicopter.
Yes.
I've always seen Jaws 2 as a slasher film with a shark.
That's what I was thinking as well, yeah, because it has the teens being menaced and since we're not doing, slasher films, you need to change your number 3 right now. Oh.
Well, he talked about Bug, so he can say Bug.
Yeah.
There's another film in my top 3 which could also be deemed a slasher film as well, so I might have to redo 2 of my top 3.
Okay, well, yes. We shall see that. But when I was always disappointed that there wasn't the shot in the film that's in the poster, which is also that fantastic poster of that woman water skiing in her bikini and laughing and waving, I think she is, and behind her the Jaws is coming out of the water like it's towering over her.
Yeah, well, there is a girl water skiing and you see the fin behind her.
But it doesn't really do that though, does it?
No, but then Jaws eats the speedboat that's pulling the water skier.
Yes,
and the speedboat blows up in a fantastic sequence.
Exactly.
You're just too picky.
I know. But
what
also,
more do you want? Jaws eats a helicopter, Justin. He eats a helicopter.
I know. All right, but I was going to say just one thing.
Cat fight.
Yeah. It's Donna Wilkes, of course, goes on. The slasher movie connection is Donna Wilkes went on to battle Frankie Avalon, didn't she? In
Bloodsong. Yeah.
Being chased around by psychotic Frankie Avalon, and she was on crutches. Was she on crutches? I think she was in.
I think she was. Yeah.
Yes, and had a psychic connection with the flute playing psycho. So there you go.
Yes, that's not something you see every day.
No. But excellent. Well, thank you.
It's got Keith Gordon in it as well, of course, who has a slasher connection, being the nerdy son of What's-Her-Face. This is my brilliant research. She was the nerdy son of What's-Her-Face and Dressed to Kill. Angie Dickinson, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's done a lot of horror films. He was also in Christine, which is a slasher film with a car almost.
Yes.
And he was in Back to School, but that's not a horror film.
Well, that's debatable.
But it's a fantastic film.
It is.
Yeah.
Hey, now what artwork do y'all like better for Jaws? Part 1 where she's swimming and he's coming up to eat her, or Part 2 with her on water skis?
I think the Part 2 one, yeah.
Yeah, on the water skis, I like that image. That's a striking image. Of course, they're both striking. But I don't know.
I did see Part 3 at the cinema in 3D.
Oh, and what was it like? What was the 3D like?
I can't really remember, to be honest. I saw that and Amityville 3 3D at the cinema because they weren't X certificates. They were like 15 or whatever it was back then, AA or whatever the certificate was back then. So I remember going to see them, and I remember it being quite excited and being probably a little bit let down by both of them. But I think they're both quite good fun films, and that kind of segues quite nicely actually into my number 3, the Amityville Horror. It was kind of ubiquitous, I kind of guess, at that time in the late 70s, as kind of like the most talked about horror movie that I can remember around about that time, and it's a film that I kind of really, really wanted to see. And in fact, I've spoken before about seeing film posters outside the local Odeon cinema, but one of the ones I really remember very clearly was the Amityville Horror double bill with Dressed to Kill. And I've seen that on eBay, and I keep on wanting to pick it up, but it's always a little bit too expensive for me. But yeah, I remember seeing the TV adverts for it, and especially the whole Get Out thing. And in fact, the film, I do really like the film, and I know it's got a lot of detractors. A lot of people, it's quite boring in places, but I think it's really good. And I read, before I could watch horror films around this time, I read voraciously, if that's the right word, lots of books, and one of them was, I think, Jay Anston's The Amityville Horror. And I read all the sequels where they really kind of in Money for Old Rope, and they were like being followed to the motel and all this kind of crap. But anyway, the book actually was quite scary. And I also remember there was a programme on lunchtimes in England back in the 70s called Pebble Mill, and it was kind of like a light entertainment or a discussion, a kind of chat show type thing. And I was off school one day ill, and I was watching it, and they were interviewing the Lutzes, the real life Lutzes, because obviously the Amityville Horror is based on inverted commas, a true story. And I think it was interviewing them or the people who'd investigated the haunting. And I always remember there was a photo that they'd claimed had been taken in the house of a little girl on the stairs, and they showed it, and she'd had white eyes. And I always remember that really freaking me out and thinking how scary that was. And of course, when I actually saw the film, it couldn't really live up to it. There's a few bits in there that I still think are very effective, and certainly it's a hell of a lot better than the god-awful remake from about 5 years ago. But yeah, I mean, that's my number 3. What about you guys? Do you
See,
like the
I have to disagree with anyone who says it's boring. I think it's a really fantastic film. It's a slow burn type of film. I've always loved the Amityville Horror. I think it's great.
I just know. I mean, I don't think it's slow and boring, but I know that there's something that's kind of thrown at it quite a lot, because a lot of the 70s films are a lot slower, aren't they? A lot more, or deliberately paced, I kind of guess is a better way of putting it. Than,
that's a good word, deliberate.
Than the 80s counterparts, where everything is ramped up and to 9 to the dozen. But yeah,
I much prefer Amityville 2, The Possession.
But that's a perfect example of an 80s horror movie, isn't it? That kind of goes, it throws everything but the kitchen sink at you.
It does. I mean, it goes from sort of dysfunctional family drama to haunted house to Exorcist type film, all in the space of 2 hours.
And it's Italian, isn't it?
Well, it's an Italian director, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it was filmed in the States with an American cast and crew. I think, was it not?
But I might be wrong, but I think it was financed, wasn't it, by I can't remember his name now.
Dino De Laurentiis.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of Italian money behind it, which is possibly why it had that kind of that kind of feel to it, perhaps. But
but as far as the original concerns, I'm somewhere in the middle. I mean, I don't love it, I don't hate it. I remember being bitterly disappointed when I finally got around to seeing it, because as with you, it was like such big news for such a long time that by the time I got around to seeing it, my expectations were quite high.
And also, it's another one of those films which is in the process, not being remade exactly, but there's something called the Amityville tapes, isn't there? Which is kind of somewhere. I'm not quite sure. It's something that's been knocking around for a long time. I'm not sure if it's a found footage or what.
It is. It's a found footage film.
It is. Okay, well, interesting.
Yes.
Okay, but what's going on with that? Because it seems to have been. Is it just gone in some limbo somewhere?
It's in production hell, I believe. I read up on it on the Wikipedia found footage page, I believe it was. I was like, well, that sounds like it might be interesting, but I think it comes out next year, if they're even finished with it. I'm not 100% sure.
Right, okay. Well, Nathan, did you want to chip in, or have you...
Oh, well, I like the Amityville Horror. I always remember that scene where she goes to the window and sees the two eyes staring back at her.
Yeah.
I just thought that was a really scary scene.
The little piggy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So, no, I remember that. That was quite... Was it Jodie, wasn't it? Jodie the pig. Yes. See, it's coming back to me now. But, well, that's my number 3. And are you ready? I haven't got a drum roll, but you know what's coming next.
Here we go.
He's a cat.
The Wicker Man, which is, one of my favorites. I've always loved this movie. The basic plot outline is a policeman gets a letter telling him that this young girl has gone missing on this island and that nobody's doing anything about it. So, he kind of flies out there to investigate this young girl's disappearance, and he pretty much just meets like brick walls with everyone he talks to. People trying to tell him that, she doesn't, this girl never existed and stuff, but he keeps finding little evidence that she really was, a real person on that island. So obviously it keeps him around trying to find out what's going on. And once he finally puts it all together, and finds out what's really going on, it's a very haunting ending. It's just very haunting. I'm going to have to give a spoiler alert, otherwise I can't talk about it. But spoiler alert, the whole time it's like he's being set up, and really... he is the sacrifice. And just the scene of him in the Wicker Man being burned alive and screaming, and all the islands surrounding the Wicker Man, like holding hands and singing, joyously, because they think what they're doing is such a good thing. I don't know. It's quite an image that I'll never forget. But that's my number 2.
Great. Well, thank you, Nathan. How about you guys? What do you think, Eric?
I love The Wicker Man. Another film from the 70s that was a slow burn that got an update in the noughties that was sort of less than satisfactory, shall we say?
Oh, I don't know. I wouldn't say that. I would. Satisfactory, but very entertaining.
Well, I like the scene where he tells somebody to step away from the bicycle. Was it? Yeah.
Well, I think that's fantastic. If you go onto YouTube and type in Wicker Man in 90 seconds or whatever it is, the Nicolas Cage version, then it has all the best bits, so you don't have to watch the film. But
yeah.
Well, let's just say it doesn't have the same effect on the viewer as the original Wicker Man.
No, I think you're right about that.
Yeah.
How about you, Joseph?
I like the Wicker Man a lot. I'm not as crazy about it as Nathan, partly because I don't know, all the singing and dancing kind of gets on my nerves a little bit, but it's an effective movie, I think. And just to add on to the remake, I think it's one of the funniest films ever made, if you've seen it.
Well, the remake, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Wow,
the bees.
I can't believe they got away with putting that in the theaters.
I know. And is it Neil LaBute, wasn't it? And he, a bit like a lot of these directors who, when people start laughing at their films, say that it was meant to be comedy all along, but I don't know. I did the Wicker Man Trail about 7 or 8 years ago. So I went up to Scotland with some friends from Alt Horror, actually. One of Joseph's and Nathan's old stomping grounds. You were on there for a while, Eric, weren't you? Alt Horror?
I don't think so, no.
Oh, you weren't? Okay. Well, the news group, which... but yeah, we went up to Scotland and we went to the inn where they filmed it, and also went to the gardens where Christopher Lee's house was meant to be, because it wasn't actually an island, although it was meant to be an island. Where they filmed it was it wasn't. And then we went to where the stumps were in the ground, where they burnt the effigy at the end. But it was just some wood sticking out the ground, so it wasn't that exciting. But it was good. It was interesting to go around and have a look at the places. So, but yeah, well, that's my tuppence, as it were.
What does tuppence mean?
2 cents.
2 cents, yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, okay, because y'all said that there was a movie we were talking about several podcasts ago where a girl, her real name is Tuppence.
Oh, yeah.
I was curious.
Well, then she must be worth 2 cents.
I think tuppence can have another connotation, actually.
Like what?
Yeah, one's spelled with an A and one's spelled with an E at the end, isn't it? Like the name is like an A, or I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I think a tuppence is a kind of slang for a lady's bits.
Oh, is it?
I think so.
I know that you can offend somebody by calling them a tuppenny whore, which means they're cheap.
Yeah.
Buzzer.
There's no need to it.
I'm gonna start using that phrase.
I didn't say any swear words.
You said whore.
You said whore. That's a
That's
nasty word.
It's in the Bible, isn't it?
Well, the Bible's nasty.
It is.
Right. Well, but before we have a fight, I think we will have a little bit of
Horror of the Zombies, a.k.a. The Ghost Galleon. And this is considered the worst of the Blind Dead films. Number 4 would be my pick for that, by the way. But amongst many fans. But for my money, it's always been a favorite, as it features, models versus crusty zombies on a creepy old ghost ship. And it's absolutely relentless in how go for broke it is, despite its budgetary constraints. For one, I've always found old pirate ships to be, seriously creepy. Even the ship in the Goonies freaks me out. So you can kind of understand if I get the jitters looking at this one. More on that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Was?
Yeah.
Scared of the Goonies?
No, I said scared of the ghost ship, of the pirate ship, not the Goonies.
Ooh, it's Corey Feldman. Run! Ah!
Yeah. Well, I would run
Eric,
from him.
you've got
So bite
shut
me.
your bitchy mouth.
Sorry.
Oh, now you're going to slap him.
Carry on, Joseph.
Anyway,
Ignore him.
The wide shots of this ship are often hilarious because it's obviously a toy model in a bathtub when you see it from afar, especially I think at the end. But never mind. But that's part of the charm, I think. And the film ends actually on a really stark, final shot. And, it's kind of in contrast with the cheesiness before it. It's really nightmarish. But what do you guys think of the film?
I love it. It's my favourite, actually, of the... Well, it's...
Really?
It's of, the Blind Dead films.
Yeah, it's your favorite?
Well, it's kind of my favourite in... I love the first two, especially the first one, in a slightly more serious kind of way. But part 3, it's just kind of... it's just so cheesy. And for all the reasons you said, I love the whole aesthetic of having the models versus monsters, the girls in hot pants, and it's just, it's just so over the top ridiculous, but then topped off with a kind of creepy ass ending, which I think is that's what I love about 70s movies quite often, is that, and especially Eurocult 70s movies, where they don't play by the rules.
Yeah, they're so delirious. They shift, from one extreme to another, and it's it kind of puts you in a trance almost. That's what this film does to me. The whole 90 minutes is pure like Swiss cheese until that end is really just kind of haunting, and it just throws you for a loop.
Well, I agree with you about the fourth film, because I've always found that quite dull.
Yes, it has dishwater.
Yeah, so I have to give it. I've got the box set that came out, a few years back, and so I may have to give that another whirl. But yeah, that's my opinion. How about you, Eric? I presume you've seen it.
I have, yeah. I do love it. I like you. I think the first one's my favourite of the series, and certainly Night of the Seagulls would be my least favourite. Which I think wasn't Night of the Seagulls a video nasty, or what? Am I mistaken?
I think it was. It may have been kind of skirting.
Yeah, around that area.
Had a bloody heart, didn't it? Someone holding a bloody heart, which is probably the reason. But yeah, how about you, Nathan? Have you seen it?
Yes, I like part 1 the best, then 3, then 2, then 4. I agree with what you guys have said. I love the ending to it. I think the ending is really I don't know. It's like you said. It's a kind of a contrast to the rest of the movie, but it works.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder why he kind of chose to kind of go. I mean, the first film kind of ends like that, doesn't it? When they all get onto that train and kill all the people on there, and the the mother with the baby and all that kind of stuff, with blood splashing all over, and so they kind of real downbeat endings. But yeah, no, they are, if you haven't seen the Blind Dead films, they are an acquired taste, I can guess, but they're definitely required viewing for anyone for any interest in Eurocult and horror, classic 70s horror. So. Very good choice, Joseph. Thank you very much. And Eric is going to be continuing with his slightly controversial streak. And after a little bit of...
He's a cat. Exorcist 2, The Heretic. And why have I chosen this above the original? Well, I would not consider it superior to the original, which is one of my favourite films, but I saw this as an opportunity to give some love out to The Heretic, some much-needed love. And so I'm kind of cheating, I suppose. But I'm hopefully somebody will have picked the original Exorcist in their top three, sort of. So that's what I'm hoping for. But in the sequel, we have Richard Burton as Father Lamont, who's investigating the circumstances around the Exorcist from the original movie. Meanwhile, Linda Blair has been treated in this very, very futuristic avant-garde clinic for disturbed children, I suppose you'd call it. Why do I love The Exorcist 2 so much, whereas everyone else hates it? Well, it's the exact reasons everyone hates it that I love it. It's just bonkers. It's like somebody wrote it while on an acid trip or something. I mean, it has two things in it that were sorely missing from the original, and that's Linda Blair tap dancing and James Earl Jones vomiting up a whole tomato. It really has to be seen to be believed. When I first saw it, I thought it was utter tripe, as most people did. But, I mean, when you approach it with a more relaxed opinion and to take it for what it is, and maybe not have the original Exorcist in the back of your mind when you're watching it, you have to admit it is really, really ambitious. And, you know, for all those people who complain that the sequel was just the same as the original, it's just a rehash, blah, 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 blah. It's not something you can accuse The Heretic of doing. You can accuse it of being pretentious, certainly, but part of its charm is that it falls flat on its face trying to be a sort of serious horror film. It has great special effects. It has a really weird ambience. All the exteriors seem to have been shot on sets, so they have this sort of weird feel. And you have that bizarre score by Ennio Morricone, that sort of screeching tribal African music mixed with kind of a goblin or something. I'm interested to hear what you guys think of it, but I mean, I do love John Boorman's other maligned 70s outing, Zardoz, which this has a lot in common with. It's crazy, really.
Wow.
At the time, it was Warner Brothers' most expensive project, and it shows how much faith they had.
How did it do when it came out? How did it do?
It made a profit, but not the substantial profit they were hoping for.
Right.
Because, of course, the original Exorcist was probably the biggest grossing film of the 70s, probably maybe second next to Jaws, or third next to Star Wars, actually, now that I think of it. But it's the Exorcist made huge money, and they thought that it was a dead cert, no matter how bad Exorcist 2 was, that it would make, a decent profit for them. But I don't think they were expecting sort of an art house atrocity that came out, which really has nothing to do with the original Exorcist, apart from bringing back Linda Blair, Max von Sydow, and Kitty Wynn. It really has, no ties. I mean, people probably went expecting revolving heads and vomit and levitation and, satanic obscenities, but they got none of that.
Well, it's strange, isn't it? You would have thought somebody had to greenlight the movie, didn't they? So you would have thought they would have read the script. But I love that Ennio Morricone score. I think it's amazing. And I haven't seen the film for a long time, but you're not the only one. I know somebody who loves this film. It's one of their favourite ever films. So, and I haven't seen it for a long time, so I can't really remember it that well, to be honest.
Actually, you have another. Do you have another clip lined up there?
Yes, I've got.
Yes, this is an exchange Linda Blair has with a very young Dana Plato. I'm not sure how you pronounce her name, but she went on to fame and misfortune as Kimberly in Different Strokes. Of course, she met a tragic end in I think it was 1999 or 2000. But she's playing an autistic girl that Linda Blair manages to magically bring out of her shell, and the autistic girl asks her why Linda Blair is there, and this is what she says.
What's the matter with you? I was possessed by a demon. Oh, it's okay. He's gone.
Yeah, it's very matter-of-factly. I was possessed by a demon. Yes.
He went to the store.
It's okay.
He'll be
He's
back.
gone.
Yeah.
He'll be back in a few minutes.
Yeah. What do you guys think of Exorcist 2?
It's so awful, but that's part of its charm. It's so out there and totally against the tone of the original. It's like a completely different type of film, if you ask me.
Which is kind of, in some ways, it's good to have a sequel that is like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the sequel that I suppose you could compare it to would be Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2, which went completely.
I love Book of Shadows.
So do I. And
everybody hates that film, and I love it. I think it's fantastic.
I suppose the thing in common it has with Book of Shadows is it has really dodgy acting. Both of them have dodgy acting.
Yeah.
Mm. What about you, Nathan? What are your thoughts?
I haven't seen it.
Oh, you haven't seen it? Okay. That'll be
it's worth
interesting.
it, yeah.
It's
worth it to hear Richard Burton say.
I will watch it.
Yeah.
I will watch it and put it in my recently seen.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
That sounds a very.
You get to hear Richard Burton say the line, "I've flown this route before on the wings of a demon."
I'm looking forward to watching Richard Burton in the Medusa Touch. Have you ever seen that film?
No, I hear it's good. I hear it's fun though.
Yes, well, it's the one where he plays. He can create disasters just by thinking them, and then he gets put in hospital. It was basically Lee Remick's in it as well, and some of it was filmed in Bristol where I live. With him making Westminster Cathedral collapse, and it's actually Bristol Cathedral. They filmed it in lots of great massive polystyrene boulders that bounce off people.
Like in Bloody Moon, there's a fantastic polystyrene boulder in that film.
Yeah, there's people, because you imagine a boulder, or it's like a bit of rock or coving falls out that's about 5 foot square, and it lands on someone's head. It's not going to bounce 2 foot in the air after landing on the head, is it? And then they put the hand on the head and go, ooh, like that. It's going to probably, if it was real, he wouldn't be standing. But anyway, spider by. But no, good choice, Erik. Controversial as ever.
Yes, my number one is totally not controversial. So
yeah, well, we shall see.
Relax. Yeah.
Relax. Okay. Well, and in here before to get to my number 2.
He's a cat.
Yeah, that's Don't Open the Window, which is known under multiple of titles. The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue is one of them. That's what it was released in the UK as. It's a zombie movie, a 70s zombie movie. Georges Grau, who's kind of a Spanish director. And quite often I always find that directors who are alien to other countries, as in like it's not their own country when they're making a film, sometimes make very interesting films, a bit like Lucio Fulci's films he made in America. He's had a very distinctive take on America, which is otherworldly, because it doesn't really ring true as the America that we kind of know. But it has a kind of a very strange sensibility, which kind of makes it work and sort of really brings that. And the same with this film, which, if you're not familiar with it, is kind of like, basically it's a kind of not a knockoff exactly of George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, but it's set in I think it's Yorkshire Dales, I think that's right, or it's set up north in, not actually in Manchester, or it starts in Manchester, and essentially it's a kind of crop controlling machinery has basically caused the recently deceased to come back and start devouring the living. And it was a very, very gory film. Again, in common with Night School, it was prosecuted, or was certainly fingered as a video nasty. But what? Oh, I suppose I'll have to.
Matron.
Yes, that's a very good one. Wouldn't you agree, Matron?
Yes. Anyway, enough of that. But yes, it's very, very gory, and it's very different from British 70s horror movies, which had a kind of playfulness, I kind of guess, with the gore. If you're looking back at something like Asylum and all those kind of British kind of Hammer movies and things like that, which are kind of, usually quite playful, I kind of guess is a good way to term it. Whereas this is kind of full-on horror. You've got scenes where a woman has a breast ripped off, and the uncut version, full-on cannibalism, zombie cannibalism, and it's got some great kind of dialogue, and it's got hippies versus police, and so it's very dated, but it's a great film. I really like it, and that's my number 2. How about you guys? So you presumably you've all seen it.
Yes. I think that movie has more alternate titles than any other film out there. I love it, though. It's really... Yeah.
Is it also known as Let Sleeping Corpses Lie?
That's it. That's
okay.
it.
That's what I saw it under.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when the trailer came on...
3, The Living Dead, Let Sleeping Corpses Lie, Don't Open the Window, Do Not Speak Ill of the Dead, Breakfast at Manchester Morgue, The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue, and a lot of Italian titles.
Because the other weird thing is, because it's set in Britain and the main characters are kind of British and American, but all the zombies, I think, are Spanish, well, they all look Spanish, which makes it even stranger. I think I mentioned this before on the podcast, but I saw it back when I was about 16 or 17 on video, and it had been banned, and they re-released it on video, and it had every single bit of gore cut out of it. There wasn't a drop of blood in the whole thing, and just thought it was awful. But then, of course, I was a 16-year-old, so all I wanted to see was blood. But having seen it kind of, over the years, it's kind of, it's one of my favourite 70s horror movies.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. Great choice. When you were playing the trailer, actually, and it was going, don't open the window, I was trying to think, or don't open the doors, or don't open the window?
Yeah,
don't open the window. Yeah, because I was trying to think, what's that film? I know that film, but then when you mentioned the alternate titles, yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, there's kind of, that was, of course, that was the beginning, wasn't it, the 70s, of all the Don't films, which they they kind of took the mickey out of in the Grindhouse trailers, didn't they? And
Edgar Wright's one,
If you're thinking of going in the basement, don't. I love that trailer, not as much as Thanksgiving. But
starring Katie Melua, of all people.
Who was it?
That trailer, yeah, if you have the Grindhouse Blu-ray, they go behind the scenes of the making of the trailers, and Katie Melua is in one of the stars of the Don't trailer.
Okay, well, that's interesting, isn't it?
Best place for her. Keep her off the radio, I say.
Exactly. Well, let's. Should we go on to our number ones? And I think, Nathan, this is your top of the pops.
Let's scare Jessica to death.
It's my number one because it's one of those ones that, like we've discussed earlier, it's deliberately paced. So I don't know if it's for everybody because it is a very, very slow burn film. But to me, I just love the way the director, captured it, because it's like, the movie's about Jessica, who's just been released from a mental asylum, and her husband and a friend of theirs have just got this house, out in this new town. But once they get there, like, she starts to notice a lot of weird stuff going on, like the whispering at night, and, the townspeople are really weird, and they all have similar markings on their necks and stuff. And, but it's one of those movies that you're kind of wonder, is she crazy? Or is all this stuff really going on? You don't really know. And don't think just because the title's called Let's Scare Jessica to Death that, that pretty much gives it away, because really it doesn't. The beauty of this movie is even when the film ends, you still aren't 100% sure if she's crazy or if all this stuff that, has gone on really happened. And that's what I love about it. So, yeah, that's my number one because it's so good.
Great. Okay. How about you guys? What about you, Joseph?
Well, my secret shame is that I'd never seen Let's Scare Jessica to Death until last night. And so, I got home from watching movies at Grant's and I put it in. And I really love the film. I think it's very unsettling, very 70s, obviously. I love the image of her in the boat at the very end of the film. I don't know, it really got to me for some reason.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Erik?
Yeah, I do love it as well. My favorite image is of creepy underwater lady. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It does. It has that same kind of ambience as films like Messiah of Evil, if you've ever seen that, or The Child.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and that's great. It's my favourite image actually. Is that kind of the woman floating underwater? I think it's hugely effective, isn't it? And it's again, it's kind of 70. It's kind of the consummate 70s slow burning creepy horror movie. And was it GP? Was that general admission? What's the difference between GP and PG in America back then?
I don't know. I'd never heard of that before.
I thought GP was PG for back then, and maybe they changed it to PG. I don't know, but don't quote me on that because I don't know.
Maybe it's guidance parental. I don't know.
Yeah. How bizarre. But anyway, that's great, Nathan. Well, do you want to say anything else about it before we move on?
Well, while we're on the subject, what is your guys' opinion? Do you think that everything really happened, or do you think it was all in her head?
I don't know. I haven't seen it for a number of years. I've got the VHS, the original American VHS, because I don't even know if it came out on video in Britain. But I probably haven't seen it for 7 or 8 years, so I don't remember, to be honest. But Joseph, you probably got a theory, haven't you? If you just saw it last night.
Yeah, I think I'm on the side of it all being in her head.
Well, and I mean, I guess it's a spoiler, so spoiler alert. But after all the finale happens and she's out in the boat, like
Yeah,
it's
I think
weird
that was
because
kind of
when she looks back, and all the townspeople are just kind of standing on the, on the land, and they're just kind of staring at her. So it does make you wonder. I mean, are they staring at her because like she's crazy and they just witnessed her have this crazy breakdown, or because they want her like to kill her?
Okay. Well, there you go. And if you've got a theory, why don't you phone in and let us know? And we'll come to that a little bit later when we do some feedback. Did you have a theory on that, Erik, or are you a bit like me? You haven't seen it for a while?
Well, yeah, my theory varies every time I watch it. When I first saw it, like Joseph, I thought, okay, it's just all in her head. But then when I've rewatched it since, I was like, okay, the town is full of zombie, like, occult people. So, I don't think there is... I don't think the filmmakers had a definitive answer in mind. I think they wanted to leave it open-ended.
Okay. Well,
which is good.
Yeah.
Yes, very good. Very good decision.
Okay. Well, no, thank you, Nathan, for your number one. And we'll move on to another 70s classic with Joseph's number one. Why do you choose Dead of Night?
I think it is Bob Clark's second best film. It's also known as Death Dream and The Night Andy Came Home, and it's essentially the monkey's paw done in that kind of dreamlike haze that, only Bob Clark could pull off. Matron, maybe. It features sympathetic individuals as the parents of a soldier who inexplicably comes home after it was announced that he was killed in battle. And said character, played by Richard Backus, exudes the kind of quiet, almost non-existent menace that is all the more menacing because of how subdued he is. I especially love the scene at the drive-in, and the ending is appropriately downbeat and would have to be in keeping with its source material. But I don't know. I just think it's a really phenomenal film. And, Bob Clark kind of had a way with, accentuating atmosphere more of, action. It's a shame, that, he made these good films in the 70s, but then he kind of fizzled out after, he became popular with A Christmas Story. And then I believe he went on to direct one of the Never-Ending Story sequels, and then he just kind of, was tragically killed. But yeah, but that's my number one. It's a fantastic movie.
Cool. Okay. Well, I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure I have seen it, but it's one of those films that if I have seen it, I saw it a long time ago. I know of it. Didn't Tom Savini do the special effects for it?
For Dead of Night?
Yeah, for Death Dream.
I'm not sure on that. He may have.
I thought he did, but I might be wrong. But I saw a film the other night, which is called Dead of Night, and I actually thought it was going to be this film, but it wasn't. But it has a very similar... it's another 70s film that has a very similar... It's a portmanteau sort of three stories, and one of them is a monkey paw style story with a woman whose young son drowns, and then she uses satanic ritual to get him back, and then he comes back, or something comes back.
The title they use the most is usually Death Dream, but that's the DVD release, was released under Death Dream. But I'm looking on the IMDb here to see if Tom Savini was involved, and I don't think he was. Yep. Makeup artist, also with Alan Ormsby. They both did the makeup. So, yes, you were correct.
Well, there you go. Never argue with me, Joseph.
Hey.
How about you, Nathan? What are your thoughts on it?
Oh, I love Death Dream. I agree with everything Joseph has said about it. I think it's an excellent film. And, of course, I'm a big Bob Clark fan anyway. So, I would really enjoy it.
That's a movie I thought, Grant would love. But when we showed it to him, he was just making wisecracks the whole film.
He liked it, though. He told me he did.
Wasn't Jamie there? He did? Really?
Yeah, but Greg still really enjoyed it. He really liked it.
Yeah.
Okay. What about
Strange
you, Erik?
boy.
What,
Strange. I'm sorry?
So, Erik, I was wondering...
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I've seen it. I do like it. I think the lead character Andy is really, really creepy. It gets creepier as the film goes on. He just has this eerie detachment from everyone else. And then, like when the special effects come out in the last 5 or 10 minutes, it's really well done.
Cool, excellent. Well, anything else you want to say about it, Joseph?
No, I think it's like I said, it's a fantastic film, very underlooked and underappreciated. If you get a chance to have a look, I would, because I really recommend it, and it really is my number one. I love it to death.
Great. Well, great choice. Thank you, Joseph. And Erik, we're going in a different direction, aren't we? We're going up into the sky. So
just to prove I'm not being difficult this time. I mean, people may argue Jaws 2 and Exorcist 2, but I don't think anyone's going to argue Alien as being my number one. It's the commercial mining ship, the Nostromo, are sort of tricked into letting this parasitic alien life form aboard, and all hell breaks loose. And this is the one I was referring to earlier when I said it's kind of like a slasher film set in space. You've got a core crew of, I think it's 7, I'm not 100% sure, being chased around dark corridors and the interiors of the spaceship by the alien, who could, for all intents and purposes, be Jason. So, Alien and Jason X kind of have a lot in common, and in other ways kind of don't have a lot in common. Is another way of it. Yes.
Take that back right now.
Well, in which aspect?
Well, I think Jason X is a big fucking pile of shit.
Well, I'm with
fantastic.
Yes, well, I'm with you. I wouldn't call it a big fucking pile of shit, but I do think Jason X is a very, very weak film, whereas Alien is possibly one of my
late on that buzzer.
Yeah, talk about delayed reaction. Yeah. Well, that was probably a buzzer for a swear word we said 2 episodes ago.
It probably was, actually. Yeah. I'm not my finger trigger.
Alien is probably my favourite film of all time. I just think it's utterly fantastic. It looks amazing, especially if you see it in the cinema. And thankfully, it was reissued about 7 or 8 years ago. It was reissued in the cinemas in a director's cut, so I got to see it on the big screen, and it was a real treat. It is basically an exploitation movie with a very, very talented visual director attached to it, giving a glossy, big-budget sheen. And I do think Ridley Scott's work on it is amazing, although I'm not a Ridley Scott fanboy at all. I mean, I like Blade Runner, but anything else of his I've seen, I've been underwhelmed by, I have to say. But I think it's just fantastic the way it's another one of those slow burn films. It's not hugely gory, but it racks up the tension, and it culminates in Sigourney Weaver in her pants versus the giant insecty alien bit at the end, which is pure slasher movie, the girl in the pants.
Do you think it would
see, now you're going to have to pick a different film because it is slasher-esque.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let me think.
I think we'll let him get away with it. But I was going to ask, do you think they would have, because it was written, Ripley's character was written for a man, wasn't it, originally?
Yeah.
And do you think they would have had a man
in his underpants?
In his underpants at the end, if that was... Probably not, do you think?
Well, if it was going to be John Hurt in his underpants, I'd prefer not.
Yes.
Yeah. I think the more clothes on him, the better. As good an actor as he is.
Yeah.
Not your type.
No.
What about if it's Bob Hoskins? He would never be the final girl because he's too fat to run away from the alien. That's true. He'd get his arse stuck in the airport, wouldn't he?
He would. Send him into the ventilation shaft and he'd be kind of stuck, Homer Simpson style. Yeah.
But I mean,
as would I. I'm not being sizist. I would get stuck as well.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Hey, this could be libel. We might want to take that out.
No,
I'm just kidding.
Do you reckon Bob Hoskins is listening? He might be.
Yeah, he is. He's our ardent fan.
Oh, I wish.
Bob, phone in on.
All right, darling.
I like that Erik was like, I wish.
Nathan, what are your thoughts on Alien?
Oh, I love Alien. I mean, it's like a slasher movie with an alien. I mean, of course I'm going to love it. It's great. The effects are great. I mean, it's just it's an all-around great film. So, I mean, there's nothing really bad I could say about it.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
I do like the fact that... Oh, I'm sorry, Justin. But I was just going to say, I do like the fact that before I'd watched it... See, I didn't watch it when I was younger. And I always used to hear about, like Sigourney Weaver's character, Ripley, she's such a badass and everything, which in the sequels is true. But I was surprised when I watched the first one. I mean... she definitely has a survival instinct, but she's not like what you would call a badass, final, heroine, I guess I'd say. Yeah. She's intelligent.
Am I the only one who thinks the Aliens, the first sequel, is really overrated?
I think it's slightly overrated. I wouldn't call it really overrated though. And I think Alien 3 is really underrated.
It is underrated,
particularly in the director's cut. Yeah.
What do we think?
The less said about the fourth, the better, though.
Yes.
Yes. Well, what do we think the chances of Prometheus being any good? Which is supposed to be
written by the guy who did Lost, so it'll probably suck.
Oh.
You think what?
I am kind of looking forward to it, but my hopes are sort of low, rock bottom, in fact. But if it can even look anyway like the original Alien, with the H.R. Giger designs, then I'd be happy. But I think it's just going to be CGI and flashing edits, really fast edits, and
It's got a good cast though, isn't it? It's got is it Noomi Rapace from the girl with the dragon tattoo and Michael Fassbender. It's got a good cast in it. I don't know what it just seems that Ridley Scott, who's obviously returning for it, is it seems 1 minute it's a prequel, next minute it's got nothing to do with it, but it's in the same universe, and so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
I'm definitely going to go see it when it comes out. But,
of course.
My hopes aren't high.
No,
my hopes were dashed when I found out it was written by Damon Lindelof, who did Lost, which was a good show for the first 5 seasons, and then it went really off the rails in the last. So that kind of ruined my hope for the Prometheus, actually.
Okay. Well,
just getting back to Alien Resurrection, I shamefully thought it was brilliant when I saw it in the cinema, but now I can't stand it. I absolutely hate it now.
What about Alien versus Predator?
Do you know what? Because I wasn't expecting anything, and because it came along with a load of bad reviews behind it, I thought it was relatively entertaining. The second one, Requiem, I thought was awful.
See, I thought the second one was like so bad it's good, actually.
Okay. Well,
yes, because it's the Alien universe has always been kind of serious and had sensible adults battling aliens, and then all of a sudden there's jokey teenagers delivering pizza being menaced by aliens. It just didn't work.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, okay. Well, thank you, Erik, for your Alien, if that makes sense. But here's my number one, and a very different type of number one to Alien. Andy Warhol's Frankenstein, which was filmed at the same time as Andy Warhol's Dracula, or Blood for Dracula. And obviously Andy Warhol's Frankenstein was also probably better known as Flesh for Frankenstein. I adore these two movies. I always have done. I think they're really, really good fun. Very strange. They star Joe D'Alessandro, who, if you don't know, I'm sure most people do know who Joe D'Alessandro is, but he was one of the Warhol superstars, known for his beauty, not necessarily his acting skills, but the very fact the film's supposed to take place in Transylvania or 19th century Romania or whatever, and he's got a broad New York accent. So they're quite transgressive, I think, the films, but they work on so many different levels. Obviously, Flesh of Frankenstein was released in 3D. I've never seen it in 3D, but I'd love to. It's very, very gory. It's got Udo Kier, who was kind of one of these people. He was a heartthrob. His German actor was a heartthrob back in the 60s. And early 70s, and then he later in life he just got creepier and creepier looking, and so now he's just basically, they call on him. I was surprised actually in Human Centipede that he wasn't the Doctor in that, because he would have been perfect. But he plays Baron Frankenstein and also Dracula, and I love the way that they kind of swap things around. In Blood for Dracula, Udo Kier's on the lookout for a virgin, or a virgin as he calls them, but he can't find a virgin, and if he drinks non-virgin blood he's violently sick and throws all the blood up. In Flesh for Frankenstein, there's just lots of severed heads, there's gore, there's blood, there's entrails on the end of sticks, and it's got obviously filmed in Italy as well. They're all filmed in Italy, so it's got some great Italian film actors in there as well, and it's just kind of, I just adore them. They're great fun, and so that's my number one, which is a tie between Flesh of Frankenstein and Blood for Dracula, which I think they're very much two peas in a pod. How about you guys? Presumably you've seen them?
Yes, I've actually seen it in 3D, albeit on television.
Okay.
It was, I think it was the Halloween before last, Channel 4 in the UK had a 3D season, and you could pick up your 3D glasses for it in Sainsbury's, and I think it was given away free with magazines or something. So when they broadcast it, you had these they were slightly different from red-green. They were slightly different color tint, but it was the same process. It was relatively effective. The entrails and the end of the stick I thought worked really, really well. Surprisingly, but then other bits were a bit blurry, and you got the sort of the double image problem that you get with is it called anaglyph? I think the process is known as.
That's right.
But no, as a film, I think it was really, really good fun. That was my first time actually ever seeing it.
Okay.
I think it's not another one that made the Nasties list, or
yes,
skirted around the Nasties.
It did indeed. Yes. Yeah. But you've seen Blood for Dracula as well?
I haven't. No.
No, okay, because that's it's very similar, but it's got that. It's definitely worth seeing. Very gory. It's got Roman Polanski in it as well.
Oh.
So, and also there was it's obviously directed by Paul Morrissey, or supposedly directed by Paul Morrissey, or also they're not sure if it was directed by him or I can't remember his name now. It's Italian director, but anyway. How about
Antonio Margheriti, is it?
That's right, yes. And there's been this long-running debate about who actually directed them. Obviously, Andy Warhol didn't direct them. He just put his name to it, a bit like his artwork. He didn't actually do very much apart from turn up at the premiere, which, again, is kind of very kind of Andy Warhol sort of kind of transgressive art kind of thing to do. But yeah, they worked because or despite of themselves, I kind of guess. Joseph, have you seen either of them?
No, I can't say I've seen either of them. I've wanted to, but I've never got around to it.
Okay, well, sort of. Let's see if hopefully you'll get a chance to at some point, and because I know another podcast I listen to, they absolutely hate them, so I'm probably not exactly alone on it. But what about you, Nathan? Have you seen them?
No, the only Andy Warhol movie I've seen is Andy Warhol's Bad.
I mean, that's got Joe D'Alessandro in it as well. I mean, these are very, very different from his art house films. Well, they are pure exploitation. They're not, they are kind of relatively high-budgeted kind of gothic romps, basically. If you can imagine the cross between a New York art house movie, but with Hammer, with a sex movie and added cheese and overacting, they're a bit like like something like Thundercrack or something like that. It's kind of that kind of bizarreness. But if you haven't seen them, then I would definitely recommend them. You might not like them, but you won't know until you've tried it.
The only Andy Warhol film I've ever seen was the one where the guy's getting a blowjob and it just focuses on his face the whole time. It's called Blowjob, I think it's what it's called.
It's not like
this. Like 1964 or something like that.
Well, in this film, Joe D'Alessandro gets an armpit job. So it gives like an idea. Well, this woman, she's having sex with this very strange-looking woman called, is it Monique Van Duren or something? And she just starts sucking his armpit. So it's a very strange film. But yeah, I love it, and it's definitely worth seeing. If you've not seen them, I adore them, and I might watch Blood for Dracula tonight actually, because I haven't watched it for ages. So that's my number one. So that rounds out our top threes, and I think it's probably time we went on to our feature presentation. What do you reckon, guys?
Oh yes,
yay! Okay,
yes.
Well, our feature presentation is Night School, and here is the trailer for Night School, aka Terrorize.
When darkness descends on the city, something happens to the girls who attend night school.
You're not walking home alone tonight, are you? After what happened?
We'll be all right.
Something secret.
Modern man has only to take a short step to wind up in the primeval jungle of his ancestors.
Something forbidding.
Well, we've had a few kooks in Boston in our time, but headhunters, not too many.
something terrifying.
Who's there?
Prepare for a lesson in terror. Night School.
Okay, and that was the trailer for 1981's Night School. If you haven't seen it, here's a brief synopsis. They work by day, take a full schedule of classes at night, all night, and somehow find the time for study on an occasional date. Women in the evening curriculum at Boston's distinguished Wendell College do a lot to get ahead in life, but there's someone who will go to even greater heights, someone who will do anything to get ahead. A killer whose MO is a ritualistic decapitation of victims makes terror a required course at Night School. Directed by Kenneth Hughes, Casino Royale, and starring Rachel Ward, The Thornbirds After Dark, My Sweet, in a screen debut. Leonard Mann plays the homicide lieutenant assigned to the puzzling case. He has hunches, not clues, suspects, not evidence, and a rising body count. Finals are coming early this year at Wendell, and for those who don't make the grade, heads will roll. So yes, 1981's Night School, aka Terrorize. We'll get onto some of the background information about the film a little bit later, but the film was actually filmed under the title Terrorized. I didn't find out why it was released in America as Night School, but it obviously was. Maybe, who knows? But it got released everywhere else in the world as Terrorized, and certainly got released in the UK as Terrorized. It was filmed in late 1980 and came out in late 1981, and kind of missed the boat, I kind of guess, a little bit with the slasher movie, because by the time it came out in 81, the slasher movie boat had kind of moved on a little bit. But as it sounds, it is a slasher movie through and through. Bit of a strange pedigree, and we'll talk a bit more about that a little bit later. But it's a mixture of comedy and terror and soap opera and various other things, which works a lot of the time. To my mind, doesn't work all the way through it. I was also going to say that we actually, it's been a little bit jinxed this episode, because had two interviews lined up with people who'd worked on the film. I still have the interviews, but when I went to record one of the interviews, my setup broke. So I've done it'll be a text interview, which will be appearing on the Hysteria Continues Facebook page and also on Hysteria Lives. That will be with Robin Gray, who worked behind the scenes on the film, and I'll talk a little bit more about what she had to say a little bit later. I'm also hoping to have a text interview with Karen MacDonald, who played Carol, the waitress, in the film. And again, unfortunately, we didn't have time to get an interview with her to play on air, but we're hoping to get that through and have that up fairly shortly. So without further ado, guys, what did you think of the film? How about you, Erik?
Yeah, I mean, I really love Night School. What I think it does really well is that the terror sequences, the horror sequences, are really effective. I mean, you don't see anyone being decapitated. You don't see that much actual death. What you see is a lot of the cat and mouse. You see a lot of the suffering of the victims just before they die, and it's really quite effective and quite brutal in places. And then in between all that, you have the cheesiness. mainly courtesy of Miss Ward, who I know it's her feature debut and we have to really forgive her of that, but she is a bit wooden, in fairness. And, it's hard to believe a few years later she was winning awards for the Thornbirds, not that long after Night School. It kind of reminds me, the film reminds me kind of Happy Birthday to Me, in that both of them have what were considered pretty high-profile Hollywood directors attached to what were, I suppose, beneath them slasher movies. And both of them have a really sort of a gloss that's probably missing from some of the other, if you put this up alongside Graduation Day, for example, which came out the same year, I mean, you'd know instantly which one came from Kenneth Hughes and which one was from Herb Fried. Because there's no comparison. I do love it. I mean, I don't think it doesn't bore me for 1 second, and it doesn't bother me that it's pretty gore free, which makes it weird that it was put on the Video Nasties list in Britain under its title Terrorize. But I think it'll have you laughing 1 minute at the cheesiness of it, and then it'll have you actually wincing at some of the horror later. I think it works on both levels.
Okay, well, thank you, Erik. How about you, Nathan? What is your thoughts on Night School?
I love Night School. And some of our listeners may recall that the trailer was actually my number one pick for our favorite trailers top 3.
That's right.
I love that trailer, and I love the music in it. I really like the idea behind Night School, the killers, like their way of thinking of the decapitations and putting the heads in water. I love that that idea. I think my only gripe with Night School is I thought the ending, like the very end in the car, was very unnecessary. I thought that it should have ended like right after the funeral. Like that should have been it. I thought they tried to add like a last minute joke in, and it didn't really work because the rest of the movie is very serious. So I was very annoyed by that. I kind of wish they would have cut that out. A great movie regardless. I love the scene with the head in the aquarium, and I think Joseph mentioned it once before where it hit a turtle or something?
Yes.
The poor turtle.
Unscripted, I believe, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the turtle was probably just a little annoyed, get this out of here so I can swim some more. But great movie.
Great. Okay. How about you, Joseph? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I kind of agree with Nathan about the ending. I like the false ending better than the actual serio comic gag with the two detectives in the car. But I love Night School, and I really think it's a vastly underrated film. One thing I have to talk about is that, up until a few weeks ago when I last saw it again, I always thought it was just kind of a mediocre film at best. But, my last couple of viewings, they kind of awarded me with a rich experience that, it's almost giallo-esque in a way, I think, with the dark clothes on the killer and the whole kind of misty, foggy Boston, dreary atmosphere kind of has that giallo tone, sort of a Deep Red-esque outdoors at night type of thing. But it's kind of weird how the film is a kind of a police procedural, juxtaposed with all these stark murder sequences. They're not especially gory, but they're really brutal, I think. Like Nathan said, I like the head in the fish tank, and the moment where it hits the turtle, I always thought was kind of funny, kind of cruel but funny. But anyway, if there's a failing, it would be that ending, and I think the identity of the killer is extremely obvious. But it's big spoiler coming up because we have to dissect things. It's Rachel Ward's character. But other than those minor foibles, it's a film I'd highly recommend, and I'd say it's about time it was more respected, if you ask me.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you haven't seen the film, then, just to fill you in, Rachel Ward's character is an exchange student, obviously a British exchange student, who is shagging her anthropology professor.
Making love,
sorry. Who Drew Snyder, who has some great dialogue.
Buzzer.
Sorry, it's not shagging. I said shagging's not really
That's a dirty word.
Okay, all right.
It's very dirty.
We have to be very G-rated from now on because people are complaining.
And I'm a born-again Christian now, so...
Are you?
Yeah.
Just in the last 2 minutes.
Okay.
I thought that must have happened very recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll try...
So none of that carry on in future, thank you very much.
What, none of what... None of...
Excellent. Well done, matron.
Well, it seems a little bit rickety, Doctor.
Is it? Yes, but of course it's fairly easy to get it up. It's getting it to stay up. That's what counts.
Indeed. So anyway, we coming back to the film, to Night School. We have Rachel Ward, who is she's basically the exchange student, and she's living with Drew Snyder, who's a professor who can't keep it in his pants. He seems to have basically made sweet love to pretty much every female student at Wendell College, and so the students that he's been making love to are ending up dead, aren't they? What are you sniggering at the back?
Just say fucking. It'd be easier to just say fucking.
Or knobbing.
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 For goodness sake.
Knobbing?
Yeah. Continue.
I'm trying to press the buzzer, but it's gone a bit stiff on here for some reason.
Ooh, maybe.
There we go. That's strange.
I'm not that kind of doctor.
Anyway, I'm trying. Let me get back on track. Get back on track. Is just say that the whole thing. The reason it kind of is basically it's very, very heavy-handed. The whole anthropology thing and why it's got such fantastic dialogue, such as we had at the beginning, isn't breaking and entering a crime even for a policeman. Rachel Ward says in a very, very wooden way, and the policeman fires back, isn't headhunting a crime even for an anthropologist. And so all the way through the film, we get lots of shots of people talking about, or the professor talking about the rituals of people in Borneo and places like that, and headhunters. And there's a great cheesy shot of Rachel Ward and Drew Snyder in pith helmets holding skulls, I believe, and just to really hammer home the point about this. So yes, as Joseph said, it's kind of frighteningly obvious who the killer is, because basically Rachel Ward, every time the dirty professor makes any pass at any woman, he makes pass at every single woman, including Carol, the poor waitress. She goes on to kill them, or somebody dressed as Rachel Ward. It probably wasn't her doing the killing. And so it's fairly staggeringly obvious, as you know, has already been pointed out, that she is the killer. Even though there's the classic red herring, which I think is a Bill McCann's character. I think it's Gary, who's the peeping Tom, who's got the real kind of, he's got a bug-eyed peeping Tom, who is he just keeps on, you know, basically he's just a really sleazy character, isn't he? And I love the scene at the end with the car chase, and they're chasing the killer, or who they think is the killer, on the bike, and he's in the back of the car, and he's going, "I need to use a toilet," like this, and it's kind of it's just like really, really bizarre, and it's just kind of obviously tongue in cheek. I think I mentioned this before about how this kind of feels more like an Italian movie in some ways, because obviously Strip Nude for Your Killer, the Andrea Bianchi, or if that's how you pronounce his name, very sleazy film, has the killer, again, who also happens to be a woman, dressed in black leathers and a black motorcycle helmet, and kills the cast in that. And of course that's repeated here. But what's interesting, and I think I pointed this out before, it does seem to have done some of its own influencing, in so much the scene in the aquarium where the woman's attacked and she's basically spinning across the white walls as she's being slashed by the killer with this kind of machete kind of style knife. It's very similar to the famous scene in Tenebrae, where the woman gets her arm chopped with an axe and then has that balletic kind of spray of blood, crimson blood, across the wall. And it doesn't go quite as far in this, but I do wonder, it kind of goes in that whole full circle of this film presumably being inspired by Giallo. It may have been a coincidence, but it might not have been. But then it looks like Argento took a look at the Italian the American slasher movies that were coming out at the time. So when he made Tenebrae, what he did was he borrowed things from the American slasher movie. So you know, that was you know, I thought it was quite interesting. But it's kind of, I'd liked seeing Boston as a backdrop, because it made it, and also Boston in the fall or the winter, and it was kind of a lot of it does take place outside, and I thought it was quite an interesting kind of backdrop for a movie. Do you guys think that as well?
Oh yeah, like I said, you know, it's got that whole you know, that kind of foggy Boston atmosphere. It's all kind of damp, and almost kind of gray and drab. I think it suits the film, the tone of the film well.
Absolutely. The one thing I didn't really... I mean, I wasn't sure whether or not this was a troubled production. When I spoke to Robin Gray, she didn't say it was. I mean, Robin Gray actually said that it was her favourite ever film she's worked on. It was the first film she ever worked on. She said it was like a big camp that everyone got on and everyone's, had a lovely time. But what seemed strange was the whole opening scene, well, not opening scene, but the scene where the cop, Leonard Mann, and his girlfriend, Marga Skinner, have this great long scene where they talk about, well, let's go out, let's go and do this, let's go and do that, let's have breakfast, and then he gets called away to the first murder, and then you never see her again. Yes, that stuck out as well to me, yeah. Which is odd, isn't it? I mean, you kind of think, well, why introduce her in the first place unless you need to pump up the running time? Because it just didn't see... I thought if it was a classic, the way these films tend to be, you would think that she would be menaced at some point, wouldn't you, by the killer? But that wasn't the case, and I wonder. I don't know why. I think Marga Skinner. I did look up, and I think she died. She died a while back anyway. So obviously I couldn't speak to her. So or try and get a hold of her. So, but yeah, I just wondered why that was, and it just seemed a bit of a strange kind of misstep. And if you thought that.
No, I did. I was like, well, what's she got to do with the plot? I mean, she doesn't return at all, and I mean, as you say, it's quite a long sequence. It goes on for about 3 or 4 minutes of them, going out to buy groceries for breakfast, and then she's like, "Oh, you have to be called away to another murder scene." Blah 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 blah, and it seems like it's setting it up for something that never happens, which is the sign of usually of too many cooks.
Yes, yes. And of course, I mean, we have to talk about the director, Kenneth Hughes, who obviously was a strange choice for this. Nathan, you've got... who did you find out the original director was supposed to be?
Well, I mean, what I had read was that Alfred Soule was approached to direct it, which Alfred Soule is the director of Alice, Sweet Alice, and the slasher spoof Pandemonium. And basically just what I read is he was approached but turned it down. So that was kind of interesting. Wonder what kind of movie it would have been if he would have directed it.
It probably wouldn't have had the comedy in. I wouldn't have. Well, it might have done if he did Pandemonium. I don't know.
Well, I read in... Sorry?
I was just going to say, that's exactly what I read. What you said about it wouldn't have the comedy. I think the reason why it had the comedy because Ken Hughes, did that Casino Royale, with just kind of the sort of Bond spoof, and he did a Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and he is more of a comical director, whereas Alfred Soule was more serious.
So well, I'd read in the second best slasher book on the market, Going to Pieces by Adam Rockoff, that there was an original, he doesn't name them, but he says there was an original director and star attached to the movie of playing the Rachel Ward role, and they left early on, and it kind of insinuates that some of the shooting had taken place at that stage, but he says they were replaced by Kenneth Hughes and Rachel Ward when they left.
Oh, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, because Kenneth Hughes was the film he made before this was Sextet. I don't know if any of you have suffered or enjoyed. I don't know. It's kind of one of those. It's one of those films you can suffer and enjoy.
I have enjoyed a Sextet. Yes,
you have enjoyed Sextet with Mae West.
No, a Sextet. Oh, sorry. I'm getting confused.
You're getting confused. Oh, yes. Well,
no, I'm only joking. No, it was a joke.
Okay. Tee-hee-hee. Have you seen Sextet? Anyone seen it?
No.
You've got to watch it. If you like Xanadu and anything like that, I mean, it kind of outcamps Xanadu by a million.
Oh, wow, I want to see it then.
It's the most, because it's Mae West, and she's about 942 in it, and she gets married to Timothy Dalton in it, and she basically plays herself. And it's got loads. It's got Ringo Starr, and it's got Alice Cooper in it, and all sorts of things. And it's just the campest thing you've ever seen in your life. It's also Mae West. Literally, she's pumped full of formaldehyde, and she just dodders around the stage, going around the screen, going stop, and like this, and going, and she's going to making all these kind of lewd comments to people who are about 442 years younger than her. And that was Kenneth Hughes' previous film, and then he went on to do Night School a couple of years later. So. It's kind of, so it's strange. And one thing that Robin Gray did say, and hopefully this will be an interview, which made me laugh, which will go to show actually is a perfect. It goes to show about his sense of humour. I think she was probably about 20 at the time, and it was her first film, and she was sent by one of the producers to take a script to Ken Hughes's hotel bedroom. And so she went there and knocked on the door. He opened the door and walked in. He said, "Okay, take your clothes off and let's get to it." And she was just like, for a second, she was like, she'd heard all these stories about, casting couches and stuff like that. And then she went, "You're joking, right?" And he said, "Yeah, of course I'm joking." And so and so she relaxed, but maybe, I don't know if he'd said something else. Maybe he said, "No, I'm not joking," or whatever. I don't know. But it just goes to show that he obviously was interested in kind of injecting the film with humour, basically, which is obviously what happened. But it'd be interesting.
You know what happened to him? I mean, this was his last film, is what I read, and then he didn't direct again at all, and he died in 2001. So I wonder why he stopped.
Well, I guess he died at 79, didn't he? And he was 59 when he directed this, or late 50s when he directed this. I don't know. I kind of guess a lot of people spend ages and ages trying to get films off the ground, don't they? But he obviously, if he directed Casino Royale and stuff, and he's probably quite a well-respected director, but I think the film industry went through quite a lot of changes, didn't it, from the heyday of the early 80s. And obviously Night School, I don't think, was particularly well received at the time, to say the least.
I think, judging on Irish television alone, the residuals from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang would have been quite large. So I think he could happily retire at 59.
I think you're probably right.
It's on 2 or 3 times a year over here, usually.
I mean, the thing is,
he's retired, all right.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I really liked about Night School, I mean, apart from, is the fact is that the suspense scenes are really well done, aren't they?
The opening, I think, is really effective on the merry-go-round. Apart from the fact that why doesn't she jump off? But apart from that, I think it's really, really well made.
It's going too fast.
It's kind of like House of Death when she goes out onto that merry-go-round and she doesn't get off.
Matron. But no, the thing is though, the merry-go-round's going so fast. If she would have jumped off, she probably would have hurt her. She would have skinned her legs up or something.
Better than getting killed.
It's better than being decapitated, surely.
Yeah.
But still, I don't like getting my knees skinned up. Like when I was riding a bike when I was a kid and I would wreck, it would skin my knees up, and that really hurts.
So you'd rather get your head cut off?
Well, I think that I could defeat Rachel Ward. I'm sorry, but I do. But she only killed women now.
She's like a tree. She's as wooden as a tree, so she'd probably, clobber you real good.
Oh, I love you, Rachel.
You liked her?
I tried to get an interview with her, but it didn't work.
I mean, she's heroically. I mean, I kind of just think she's heroically wooden in this. I mean, it's kind of, it's just kind of it couldn't be her dialogue couldn't be delivered in any more of a wooden way, really, could it?
No.
I tried to get an interview with her, but she wasn't interested. She never wrote back. I just don't understand why.
Oh, did you? I didn't even contact her.
Insult.
Yeah.
I didn't insult her. I asked her nicely, but she just did. She decided not to write back, as most of them have been doing a lot lately.
Yeah, I imagine that she's probably not that proud of this film. I did find
she should be. I like it.
She should be, but I'm sure she's not. I've got a quote here from Rachel Ward. It's not the one she's given to me, obviously, but one I found. And she says, "The advantage of doing exploitation movies is that they happen so quickly and are out and gone so fast. You can get away with murder in them, and it doesn't really matter because nobody really sees them." And here we are talking about that film 30 years later, Rachel.
And no doubt at one stage we'll be talking about The Final Terror at one stage, no doubt.
Oh, yeah.
Indeed. Yeah. I think she's
maybe we could get Daryl Hannah for that one.
Yeah, I'm sure I can get an interview with her.
Yeah.
She's not really doing anything now, I don't think.
Okay.
Poor Daryl. But anyway. But yeah, it's Rachel's just kind of... it's kind of funny, isn't it? I just wonder what Kenneth Hughes must have thought, because obviously she was hired for 2 reasons, wasn't she? And both of those,
yes, 2 wobbly reasons,
in the shower scene, which again I think is such a good scene because it's that juxtaposition of like she's in the shower and then someone's coming into the house and you think it's the killer. But what's really bizarre, I don't know if you noticed, when it turns out it's the professor just coming home because she's just got home after being chased by the red herring, or she thinks she's being chased by the red herring, the guy, the peeping Tom. And when the professor pulls back the curtains, he's got a really mean look on his face, as if he does want to hurt her. And then she screams and goes, "Oh, you really scared me." And he kind of goes, "Oh, did I? I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to." But it looked like he did want to scare her. So, but also maybe it's just his acting, because my favourite bit in the whole film is because what happens, again, spoiling it, because if you haven't seen it, then it's unfortunately tough, because we do spoil these films, and that's why you should really watch them before we talk about them, if you at all possible. And there's no excuse not to watch this film, because it's now out on Warner Brothers DVD in America.
And the DVD looks fabulous, by the way.
It does look fabulous. And at the end, she basically goes home and comes clean to the professor that she's been killing all these women, and then offers to make him some lunch, as you would, and then says the police are coming. And then basically what they do is a switcheroo, where he wears the biker's leather and then gets chased down by the police and crashes into a car and then lands on the ground. And when they take off his helmet, one of my favourite ever moments, slasher movie, is they took off his helmet and he's boss-eyed. He's lying there boss-eyed. And I think that's so good. That's so funny, because surely if you're doing your big death scene, the last thing you're going to do is be boss-eyed in it. But Drew Snyder, in his ultimate wisdom, decided that's how he's going to play his big moment, was to be boss-eyed. But there you go. So what can
do you like that the killer got away with it at the end?
I thought it's good, and also the fact that the policeman knew that she was really the killer, and he said to her, "Has the ceremony ended?" And she went, or whatever, just kind of like in her slightly. You weren't really sure if what she meant by that, because she was talking as if she's reading the phone directory, but it was still, it was still kind of, it was a nice ending. Apart from that ridiculous ending that you were talking about, the bit where the Armenian, his sidekick, who
just pulls a prank on him. It really feels out of place. Really, really, really.
And that prank was in very bad taste.
Yes, I mean, seriously.
Yeah, I mean, it couldn't have been any worse taste, really, could it? I mean, and also he could have pulled a gun on it and blown his head off in the back of that car so easily, couldn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And wish he had. But anyway,
I wish he had have.
Before we get on to some of the background information, have we got any other thoughts on
Yeah, I wanted to just say, I like the fact that this night school in question is just filled with teachers who just want to get into the girls' pants, be they male or female.
That's how college really is, Eric.
Is it?
Yeah, at least over here.
The other thing I noticed was a disturbing scene for me as a food enthusiast was in the diner scene, where Rachel Ward not only does she decapitate the waitress, but she also knocks over all the cakes. What a waste!
Yeah,
yes,
that was unnecessary.
What would you have done if she had set fire to a stand of chunky Kit Kats or something?
I would have cried.
You would have tipped a table, wouldn't you?
I would have.
You turn into the Incredible Hulk and start throwing things around the room.
Yeah, because in one of my favorite films is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Eric smash!
There's a scene in Willy Wonka where Charlie finds the golden ticket and he throws the chocolate away, and I'm like, look, I know you're excited.
Eat the chocolate. He's poor. He should be eating the chocolate. He doesn't.
I know.
But you remember earlier in the movie, he said that the golden ticket probably makes the chocolate taste funny.
Yeah, but then there's a scene where then there's a scene later on, and I'll stop talking about Willy Wonka in a minute. There's a scene later on where they have a huge big bar of chocolate and they send it by television, by Wonka Vision, and it shrinks down to a normal size. Yeah. What's the logic there?
Yeah,
it's madness.
This is an aside, folks. This is a major aside, just so you know.
Yeah. Anyway, so Rachel Ward destroying the cakes I thought was unnecessary, and it distressed me.
Okay.
I felt bad for the waitress. I like Carol. I actually really liked her character, so I felt kind of bad when the sassy character got killed off.
She shouldn't have been bad mouthing Professor What's-It.
Yeah,
and she wouldn't.
Well, he kind of deserved to be bad mouthed.
He's a man whore.
He is.
He was. He treated her pretty badly.
And what about
any guy who would treat a woman like that deserves to die? I would never do that.
What about the lesbian character in it? Do you think it wasn't exactly a good role model, was it? Or not a good role model, but it was strange because the film was written by a woman, wasn't it? It's got a female killer. I
like the fact the lesbian is giving out about the professor knobbing all the women in the school, and then she just does exactly the same thing.
Oh no!
Doesn't she get called out on that too?
Yes, I believe she does.
Funnily enough, I wrote to both the actresses, the one who played the lesbian director of the college, and also her sort of teenage lover, and neither of them wrote back to me. I don't know why they would be upset about that, because I think actually what the strongest scenes in the film is the one where the killer, she goes in to answer the principal goes in to answer the phone, and the door starts shutting behind her, and then she goes no, and then you see the killer, and then she she suddenly appears with her throat cut at the door and pulls back, and then the machete kind of knife kind of scimitar thing goes through the door. And also the scene, obviously, with her lover finds the severed head in the toilet, which kind of mirrored, there's lots of films with severed heads in toilets and fish tanks, wasn't there?
Yeah, curtains.
Curtains.
House and Sorority Row.
And what's the other one? The
Eyes of a Stranger, I think, had a head in the fish tank, didn't it?
The fish tank, yeah. So there was.
He knows you're alone.
Yes.
Yeah, he knows you're alone. Yeah, so there was kind of a bit of a thing, wasn't there, at the time for that kind of thing. So who knows why? Maybe in many years' time we'll look back and sort of work out what that was all about. Probably just because they wanted somewhere to find somewhere to put severed heads, I kind of guess. But anything else you want to say about the film, guys, before we talk about a little bit of the background information?
No.
I'm ready for background.
Let's get to the background, because I have a couple.
Erik, have you got anything for us?
Okay, well, I discovered that it was released on a double bill in October 1981 with Student Bodies, which apparently it had been released separately on its own in September, but then the following month on a double bill with Student Bodies. As I said, Rachel Ward, quite astonishingly, based on this performance, was nominated for a Golden Globe the same year for her role in the Burt Reynolds film Sharky's Machine. So, obviously, I haven't seen Sharky's Machine, but she must have made a drastic improvement in that film. And she was also nominated for a Golden Globe for her work on Thornbirds, which was only 2 years later. So I'm guessing we're getting probably a false impression of her from Night School and Final Terror. Also found out the score was by Brad Fidel, who of course did the score for the slasher classic Just Before Dawn. He also, we were talking last week about Fright Night. He did the score for Fright Night 1 and 2, but is probably most famously known for The Terminator. I have a few more bits and pieces, but I'll let maybe Joseph chime in with a few.
Okay, Joseph.
Like you said, it was released in September 11th of 1981. I think, according to Box Office Magazine, the domestic gross was just shy of $1.5 million, with about an estimated total of $1.2 million. And I don't know if we've spoken of this yet, but the film appeared as Terror Eyes on the UK's list of video nasties. Both the cinema and the 1987 Guild home video releases were cut by 1 minute and 16 seconds by the BBFC to heavily reduce the gore and shots of slashing during the changing room and the cafe murders. And let's see, that's all I have on it. That's all I could muster up. What about everyone else?
How about you, Nathan? Have you got anything else?
No.
You got Alfred Soul, so don't feel too bad.
Yeah, I had that in my list, but he already mentioned that, so I took that out.
Okay. What about you, Erik? Do you got anything else? I've got a few bits here. So.
Yeah, the cinematography is done by Mark Irwin, who is a big collaborator with David Cronenberg. I was talking about The Fly on the last episode, and he worked on that. So he also worked on The Brood, Scanners, The Dead Zone, Videodrome, all those sort of classic era Cronenberg movies. I also found out that it was shot for 5 weeks in Boston, and a few shots were done in New York in the spring of 1980, which meant it was probably in post-production, it seems, for about 18 months, which seems a bit strange. And it has a budget of $1.2 million, and that's all I have.
Okay. Also, it was kind of shot in the spring, so I wonder if it was shot in the early part of the winter of 1980. Then I kind of guess.
Yeah. It sounds like it made its budget back. I mean, if it made $1.2 million and it cost $1.2 million, I wonder if I guess it made most of its money on the home video market, I would say.
Yeah, I kind of guess it kind of missed its market in some ways, didn't it? Because if it had come out at tail end of 1980 or the beginning of 81, then it would have been a part of the slasher movie boom. But as it was coming out on double bill with Student Bodies, which more than...
Not really a box office bomb, but more of a neutral kind of thing, I think.
Well, yeah, if it's coming out with a film that's, basically on a double bill with a film that spoofs slasher movies, it was also got released on double bills with Saturday the 14th as well, so whether or not I kind of guess it was they either aping up the comedy aspect of it, perhaps, I don't know. But probably also the fact is, I imagine with Rachel Ward being involved in it, maybe that was what finally got it to be released, because they probably wanted to, cash in on her success. I just got a few things that I kind of got. I think it actually got a release in the UK before it got released in America, from what I can tell. It got a certificate in Britain on the 24th of March 1981, so it probably got released a little bit sooner. It got put out at the cinema by Rank Films, which, may take that for what it is, but I found an interesting little thing about the film being filmed by somebody on IMDb. And they said, just to read quickly what they said, I was about 8 years old and lived on Beacon Hill, where a lot of this film was shot. The crew was pretty friendly and let me sit in and watch a few of the scenes as they were being filmed. In particular, I remember the scene where the waitress was killed as she fumbled to try and unlock the door. They went through a few costume changes because of the blood, and overall it was a pretty enjoyable experience for a kid my age. That aside, I remember the working title for the movie was Terrorise, so I spent a long time looking for that particular title and actually didn't get a chance to see the film until I was almost 30 years old, because I wasn't aware of the title change. So that kind of confirms that the film was shot under the title Terrorise rather than Night School. As probably is to be expected, the film was universally panned on release. Dan Geyer in the Daily Herald, who is kind of basically slags off pretty much every slasher movie, although ironically he's actually, when I watched the special features on the Evil Dead release, he's the guy who introduces the Evil Dead reunion, so he obviously doesn't hate all horror movies. But what he says of Night School, he says Night School employs too much gore and maniac setups to be mainstream cops versus killer stories.
Too much gore? What?
Well, I know, but he says by sidestepping explicit blood and guts, it deprived itself of the small, gore-orientated market too. The result? It's only a poorly written, terribly acted and ill-conceived non-thriller. So again, another ringing endorsement by the press. I mean, he says that he goes on to say that the only person in the film who's worth anything is Rachel Ward, who's very charismatic. And then also says that at the time she'd already completed other films with Steve Martin and Burt Reynolds. There's another review I found from the time by a woman called Joan E. I can't pronounce her last name, Adabonkia, which I'm sure isn't how you pronounce her last name.
Adabonkia? That's a matron waiting right there.
Yeah.
Adabonkia.
Adabonkia, yes. So
Matron, no, please, hold your hand.
So that was from the Syracuse Herald Journal. The review's from Monday, September the 14th, 1981, and it's titled "Losing Your Head in Night School." Just a couple of little choice moments from it. She says, Night School is an unfortunate choice of title for the latest horror film. It places the cinema North West Hill Theatre movie in the company of such sleazy, gory tales as Student Bodies and Final Exam. So it shows the Final Exam and Student Bodies are playing at that local theatre at the time, which would have been a great, time to go and see some of these films. She says the Head in the Stew rates the first giggle on the list of killings, but the film comes totally unwound when it floats up in a toilet bowl. From then on, one could not possibly take the movie seriously, which again is quite an interesting insight to how it was viewed at the time. She goes on to say the writer, Ruth Avagon, may have had more to offer than showed up in the final cut. She sets Mann's character up interestingly, then drops all his backgrounds, as we discussed. Late in the film, she inserts homosexuality. It seems gratuitous at the time, but she may have been the victim of an editor's scissors. So I wonder if there's anything else out there, like a longer cut of it. It's, difficult to know. But, I mean, that's pretty much all I've got in the way of information on this film, apart from to say that the film's never got an uncut release in the UK, but obviously I can't see it have any problems getting an uncut release now. It's just nobody's bothered to release it, and it's probably... But bizarrely, if I think it was filmed as an independent, and it was filmed. I know Lorimer kind of was involved. Then it was put out by Paramount originally, obviously with Student Bodies as a double bill. but the new DVD release is on Warner Brothers. So I'm not quite sure how all this kind of works and buying catalogue titles from each other, but it's kind of got a very checkered history in some ways. But anything else you guys want to say about Night School before we
I believe Paramount owned Lorimar, if I'm not mistaken, and I think Warner Brothers was in the market of, just kind of buying up all these things from Paramount that Paramount was trying to, get rid of. So that's probably what happened. I could be wrong, but I think that's what I've read.
No, he's probably right, I would imagine. Yeah, it's just kind of it's funny that Warner Brothers have got the title. I mean, obviously Warner Brothers put out the original Friday the 13th in the UK and actually around outside of America, whereas Paramount put it out in America. But it's 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 a bit of a minefield trying to work out who put out what and who owns the rights to what and everything like that. But is anything else, you guys, before we go on to feedback? Is there anything else you wanted to chime in on the last? Last chance.
I just would like to say one more time that it really is underrated. I think it kind of reminds me of what's the movie they did that has the similar killer? Welcome to Spring Break.
Okay, yeah, the Umberto.
It has that kind of feel, and it has the same type of killer. But anyway, it's a really underrated film. I'd definitely seek it out.
Okay, I would love to know what Rachel Ward thinks of it now.
Yeah. Well, I'll keep trying to get her on here, but
yeah,
I don't want to be accused of being a stalker or anything.
No, you have to be careful on that, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Erik, anything else for final words?
Just to echo Joseph's sentiments, that I think it is overlooked. I think it's great fun, and I think it's a good example of an early 80s slasher. Just don't go expecting, gory effects extravaganza, because it's not that.
Okay, no thanks. And how about you, Nathan?
I'm just going to stay away from Rachel Ward's man.
Ooh.
I don't want my head ending up in water somewhere.
Exactly. But yes, I think that's probably wise words to live by and not to die by. So, well, that's Night School. And if you, would love to hear what your thoughts are on Night School. And do you like it? Do you hate it? What do you think of the show? So, we would like to get some feedback from you. It's always good to hear if we're doing things right, doing things wrong. It would just be nice to hear back. So, Joseph, do you have our contact details to hand?
Oh, I always have our contact details to hand. You can call us at 858-233-9281 and leave us a voicemail, and we will play that on the show. We take emails at the.hysteria.continues@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook by searching for The Hysteria Continues, and we're on Twitter. That's twitter.com/THC_podcast. And that is how you get in touch with us. That's how you reach out and touch us, as it were.
Yes, reach out.
And I'm fishing for a matron here, but I don't think it's going to work.
Well, let me see.
I think you were reaching for that one.
Yeah, I was fishing. Yeah, I was
you didn't pull it off at all.
No.
Ooh, there you go. That deserves one right there.
Well, thank you. That was it's a hard one to try and work out which one we should go for, but I will go for.
It's very, very hard.
That's a very good one. Wouldn't you agree, matron?
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you, and please write back in. And we've got a little bit of feedback. So I'm being attacked by a pussy at the moment. So,
matron!
You nearly made me choke.
Oh, your hand!
What on?
On my, I was having a sip of apple vodka.
Okay, right. Okay. So I have got a pussy on my lap, and I'm just going to Seabiscuit
Which
is
one?
On my lap.
Okay.
Can you hear her purring?
I can't hear her.
No.
Let me hold the microphone up to her, see if you can hear her purring. Purr into the microphone, Seabiscuit.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I just got a question.
Hey, Seabiscuit.
Why is Justin getting all the hot pussy action?
I know, it's ironic, isn't it? It's ironic.
Very ironic, yeah.
Right. Okay, well, let's move swiftly on and not dwell on this. So, feedback. Joseph, I believe you've got one.
Yeah, this is from our good friend Cameron Perry, our cat flushing the toilet aficionado. He writes and says, Hey Justin, Joseph, Erik, and Nathan. I wasn't sure if this email address was the best one to get you on, but I figured it linked from the website, so hopefully it will get through. It's Cam here again, avid slasher film and cat flushing the toilet fan. Firstly, I must apologize for doubling up on my messages to Justin and Joseph last time. I've made similar mistakes texting girls in the past and really should have learned my lesson. You will note, Justin, that I did add a few extra lines in your message. Lazy on my part either way. Just wanted to say congrats on the last episode. It was an epic but terrific, and the matron, complete with whistle, is providing a worthy substitute to my beloved cat. I haven't seen The Last Slumber Party, and although the show didn't make the film sound all that enticing, the discussion of the film was top-notch, in particular considering the lack of interviews or general information available on the film. Hearty well done. As it seems to be a common thread with your listeners, I've also given podcasting a try and would love to get your valuable opinion, as you guys seem to have mastered the art. Thank you. I wouldn't go that far for myself, but thank you very much, Cameron. It's just a solo show so far covering movie sequels. I recorded 2 episodes just to get me started on format, as well as to iron out any technical issues and well as my nerves, etc., etc. Lots of work to do on the format, as well as possibly adding some on-air partners, but I'd love to know what you guys think. You can find his podcast at moreofthesamepodcast.podomatic.com. He writes, the episodes are about 20 minutes long, and again, my apologies for, I don't know what this word is, spruiking, I'll just say advertising, my podcast, but I figure any suggestions I can get would be really appreciated. I'll try to give you a call soon and leave a personal message, but whilst I was at work and it was on my mind, I figured an email was warranted. Thanks again, guys. You're all great. P.S. As a future podcast wish list, I must agree with the other listener that Iced would make a great show. As long as no one questions anyone's integrity as a skier, then it should be fine. Another that would be great is the TV movie No Place to Hide, which was a big childhood favorite and has an incredible opening 20 minutes. Really suspenseful. Anyway, keep it up, matron, please. You guys really do a great job. If there's ever any information or contribution...
Oh, your hand!
Yeah, he actually wrote that, so I didn't ask for a matron. But anyway, he says, if there's ever any information or contribution you guys may need with an Aussie slant or flavor, please don't hesitate to ask. Bye again from the country that brought you the slasher films Blood Moon, Houseboat Horror, and Cut. Maybe we should have kept out of it. Cameron Perry.
Oh, thank you, Cameron. Thank you, Cameron.
Yes, thank you, Cameron.
What was the name of Cameron's podcast again? More of the Same?
More of the Same podcast.podomatic.com. That's Podomatic.
Well, thank you, Cameron. That's good. I was going to read my one out, but actually my one comes from Cameron Parry as well. So even though he said he apologised for writing to everyone and pretending we were special in his heart, he has done it again, but we'll forgive him. So I don't have anything to feedback. So.
Okay, I've just called up Cameron's website. His first 2 episodes of his podcast. Episode 1 is Cocoon: The Return, and episode 2 sounds very interesting. Police Academy 6: City Under Siege.
Wow, is he a Steve Guttenberg fan? It seems. Of course, I don't think Steve Guttenberg was in part 6.
Steve left after part 4, and I thought I'd know.
Yeah, that's right. They had Matt McCoy. They couldn't afford Steve Guttenberg, so they had to go for
it. Still has machine voice impersonator man in it.
The machine gun guy.
Yeah.
God,
Michael Winslow.
How bad a film must be not to be able to afford.
Hey, actually, before we get onto that, Police Academy 6 is sort of like a whodunit slasher film because someone is doing something and it's a mystery to find out who is behind the mask. So there.
Okay.
Ooh.
Well,
I've never seen it.
It's also a very terrible movie. It's terrible.
Well, you're not selling it to me, but well, I think we haven't got any other feedback, have we? So if you are listening, then please do feedback.
Nathan's got one.
Who's got one?
Nathan.
Oh, have you, Nathan?
Isn't it shocking?
Sorry.
Yes.
Well, no, I thought I'd asked, and I didn't think you said you had one, but well, you get it out.
I forgot that. It's from Reese Dusty Donnell. He just wrote me and said, hey, Nathan, just through with the last Slumber Party podcast, and I don't think I've laughed so much at one of the shows before. You guys really made me want to see the movie even more. Only 4 more weeks till I get a copy. You mentioned me, too. I feel famous. Seriously, great show. I'd love a honeymoon horror podcast someday. And since Erik loves all things 80s. Could you ask him if he's a fan of Olivia Newton-John for me? I'm a super fan.
Oh.
I do like Olivia Newton-John, but not as much as my friend David, who is obscenely obsessed with Olivia Newton-John. He came very, very close to meeting her once, but was turned away at the door. His name was supposed to be on a guest list, but it wasn't.
That's awful.
And he was very upset, and he got a handwritten apology from the organisers afterwards.
Really? Oh, God.
Yeah.
So close to greatness.
He does. He loves Olivia Newton-John. Livy, he calls her.
Livy.
He's the one who actually introduced me to the joys of Xanadu.
Well,
still need
there's
to
not
see
that many
that.
joys to Xanadu, is there? It's not.
Sorry?
There's not that many joys to Xanadu.
Oh, there are many joys to Xanadu.
Xanadu's quite a boring film, isn't it? I love the wig out bit at the end, but actually a lot of it's quite dull, I thought.
No.
Okay. Right.
Your thoughts are
that's
wrong.
Just me.
Yeah.
God, you guys are like tug of war here because part of me wants to see it, but part of me doesn't.
Cat fight.
Yeah.
Shut your bitchy mouth.
Yeah.
Don't you walk away from me, you chalk-faced whore.
Oh my gosh, when do you want it? Yard. Next exercise period. You got it.
Well, enough of that tug job. Let's move on to...
Matron, please, I'm not that kind of doctor.
See, we don't even need sound effects on the Hysteria Continues. We can make it all up. We're that talented, aren't we? That we can.
Yes, we are.
Yes, well, or something. So, well, what can I say? We are coming up to the 2-hour 20 mark. So, thank you for sticking with us all the way through this, and we will be back very shortly. Well, not very shortly, but in a fortnight, with our next feature presentation, which I think is another special 1980s film, which has just got a DVD release, but we'll keep you in suspense for a little while longer, unless Erik, you want to tell our listeners what it is, or do you want to?
It's something very big.
Oh.
Something big.
Something humongous, I'd say.
Wow, okay. Is it Bob Hoskins? No, okay. Well, let's move swiftly on to our closing remarks, and we'll play out probably with a little bit more music from Night School. It's kind of quite an understated score, I can guess. So I think we'll play out now, unless we've got anything else you want to say, any burning desire to share with our listeners?
I just want to say bye, Night School. I love you. Call me.
Okay.
I want to say it's been great chatting with you all.
Yes, it's been great, and we've had a lovely time, and I hope you've listening. You've had a nice time too, after considering hangovers and sleep deprivation and all those kind of things, I think it went quite well. So
yes, quite.
So yes, okay. Well, have a good evening wherever you are, and hook up with us again in the future, and we will be back with more slasher goodness. So, thank you very much, and catch up with you soon. Goodbye.
Auf Wiedersehen.
So who'd you expect, the headhunter?
What you want? I ain't done nothing.
You sure, Gary? Here, have a raisin.